Hey everybody, how's it going? So we have the stock market at record levels at the same time that we're hitting another record, which is people quitting their jobs. So record 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs in September. There's a few interesting things that I wanted to point out here. So a lot of people are saying that the young generation is lazy, millennials don't want to work, blah, 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 blah. And, I've met lazy people in my generation. Can't say that there aren't lazy people in my generation. I imagine there's lazy people in every generation, and I've met a lot of them. But when you take a look at the numbers, this here comes from the New York Times and Goldman Sachs. It says economists at Goldman Sachs observed that roughly 2/3 of people who left the labor force during the pandemic were over 55. Many of them are retired or are unlikely to go back to work. So a lot of the people that are quitting and a lot of people that are not going back to work are people that are not my age. Because you hear that a lot. A lot of these young people just don't want to work anymore. This generation is lazy. Yet a lot of the people that quit are below the retirement age, below the age where they can withdraw without a penalty from their retirement accounts, below the age where they can get Social Security. They've just probably saved enough money over the course of their life, and they're willing to slightly maybe downgrade their spending in order to not go back to a stressful and crappy work environment. An unprecedented number of Americans quit their jobs in September, highlighting how persistent churn is undercutting employers' efforts to fill a near record level of vacancies. A record 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs in September, and I kind of wonder if it's actually more than that, because you have a lot of people that pay their employees off the books, and people who pay their employees off the books are not going to be reporting into any of these systems. It almost makes me wonder if the way that businesses are dealing with their financial hassles, their financial troubles, or the way they're dealing with inflation is they're just opting out of the 33 to 40% tax that you deal with when you pay people on the books. And they're just saying, I'll pay you what you got before, but off the books. Just kind of curious. I mean, you never know. That could be part of it. It says, incentivized by record wage gains and other attractive terms offered by employers desperate for talent, Americans are leaving their jobs in droves. That's made it even more challenging for employers to fill positions while also driving up compensation and inflation. Now, this is interesting. So what they're saying, what the implication is there is that the reason you have so many people quitting is they're incentivized by record wage gains, meaning that I'm quitting working at McDonald's for $8 an hour to go work at this other company for $25 an hour. However, if that is the case, would you really have statements like what you see in this prior article, which is U.S. consumer sentiment drops to 10-year low on inflation fears, where people are talking about how their inflation-adjusted wages they believe it will be less. It says in this other article, and I quote, published almost the same week, about half of all families anticipate declines in inflation-adjusted incomes next year, according to the data. So if that's the case, then that doesn't really jive with the idea that people are incentivized by record wage gains to quit their job and then go to work at a higher paying job. If you are quitting your job to work at a much higher paying job, that doesn't really jive with the fact that 50% of people expect that their inflation-adjusted wages will be lower next year. Unless A, they believe that inflation is going to be so great that going from $10 an hour to $20 an hour doesn't even matter anymore. B, we're talking about two different groups of people. So maybe there are people quitting their jobs, but then you have them quitting and they're unemployed, and other people are leaving where they work to go to higher paying jobs and they don't really care about the inflation, which would mean that we have kind of a K-shaped recovery, two separate groups of people. One group of people that's kind of on the track up and another group of people that are just kind of on the track down into despair and depression, which wouldn't be a good thing. You have many different ways that you can interpret this particular data, but I find it interesting that it jumps immediately to that idea that people are quitting to work elsewhere for more money. Quits increased across several industries, notably in arts, entertainment, and recreation, as well as other services in state and local government education. The number of people who quit their jobs in leisure and hospitality, manufacturing, and healthcare sectors also rose to record highs. Again, these are sectors that kind of suck. So one of the things that I learned about healthcare recently is that, nurses, attendants, and the lower level people, even if they are skilled employees, a lot of them make less than what you make working at my store. And again, I'm not trying to imply that I pay people like absolute minimum wage. It's just when you look at what hospitals charge people, I expected that they would pay better than, a schmuck that doesn't really know how to run a business, that started his business with $200, that does basic device repair. I mean, I remember having to go to the hospital 3 years ago because I smashed my head against a plate on the floor. Maybe one of the reasons I have the lovely personality that I do. But no, I smashed my head against this plate on the street that when it was raining and oily and didn't have the traction marks on it that they're supposed to. And I went to the hospital. They put a little scanny tool by my brain. They noticed that there was as Ralph Cramden said, they found nothing. And I left after 45 minutes. about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and I got a bill for $4,500 for 45 minutes. You think that there's enough money there in that $4,500 to be able to pay the nurses and the attendants decently, but they really do. Again, if you're lower on the totem pole working at a hospital, you really don't make that much in healthcare. I really thought that they made more than they did just based on the amounts that they charged. With leisure, if you're talking about, I don't know, going to a restaurant or something like that, stuff like Jack in the Box. I mean, working at these places sucks. It pays like shit. But at the end of the day, you got to wonder to yourself, if half of the Jack in the Boxes in the country just closed tomorrow, would we have starvation? Would we have mass starvation? Would most people even notice? There was this one guy that I met while I was in Nashville, Tennessee, at the hotel that I was staying at, and he said that his place actually had to close when he went on a 2 or 3 day vacation because they couldn't find anybody to work at the Jack in the Box. And I just kind of wondered to myself, if half of the Jack in the Boxes in the country just closed tomorrow, would this even necessarily be a bad thing? I mean, again, it's not healthy food. The place doesn't really pay that well. There are many other places you could go to get food that's actually healthy, and there's many other things those people could actually be doing with their time. Something to think about. And when it comes to hospitality, I mean, these are the hotel jobs that you often pay like shit, where you're cleaning up after people, and you can never tell someone when they're acting inappropriately because, God forbid, they give you 3 stars instead of 5 stars or ask to speak to a manager. Those jobs kind of suck. And it's not surprising that people are quitting those jobs in droves if their wages are stagnant as inflation is doing this, and they're just kind of giving up on their goals. Total hires were little changed in September at 6.5 million, driven by strength in healthcare and social assistance. The hires rate was unchanged at 4.4%. Layoffs and discharges were little changed at 1.4 million. A separate report out Friday showed U.S. consumer sentiment fell to a decade low in early November, reflecting growing fears of the impact of inflation on their finances. The latest jobs report, which showed employers had some success filling openings as the Delta variant faded, also highlighted a stubbornly low participation rate, indicating hiring challenges aren't going away anytime soon. It's not that these jobs suck. It's not that they pay like shit. It's just that you're just not participating. You're supposed to participate. Recent survey data suggests the same. A quarter of U.S. workers are considering a job change or retirement in the next 12 to 18 months, pointing to further churn in the labor market. And this, again, corresponds to what you see here in the New York Times, where it said that 2/3 of the people who left the labor force during the pandemic were over 55. So, again, the elderly seem to be checking out just about as much as millennials are checking out, which is going to may actually be a good thing for the younger generation, because it'll allow the younger generation to ask for more money and it will give them some leverage. Still, there are nascent signs of improvement. Some 49% of small business owners said they had vacant positions they could not fill in October. Still historically high, but down slightly from an all-time high of 51% the prior month, according to data from the National Federation of Independent Business. The survey also showed record share of owners not only raised compensation, but are planning to do so in coming months. So this may actually make sense for someone who reads something like this to continue waiting it out. Again, if there are people that have not raised their compensation yet, but are planning to in 3 months, and you're looking for a job and the prospects suck, maybe it makes sense for you to hold out another month or two. You never know. For every unemployed American in September, there were about 1.4 openings. This is an interesting one. So if you have, I've heard this a lot, for every one person that's unemployed, there's 1.2 jobs or 1.4 jobs or 1.8 jobs. So it's on you if you can't find a job. That's just you being lazy. But it never really mentions, because I imagine it would be difficult to aggregate this data, what are those openings? Is it a $7.50 job working at a Jack in the Box, or is it a $25 an hour job doing something that's interesting, or that actually, has some sort of upwards mobility? What are they? What are those jobs? If you're unemployed and you were used to making $25 an hour and you have a skill set that typically demands $30 to $40 an hour, are you going to go work at a McDonald's for, $12, Dunkin' Donuts for $11? Maybe not. People can argue whether you should work jobs that you're overqualified for, so that you don't have a gap in your resume, or so that you're at the very least going somewhere rather than doing nothing. But there are other people that would say, I'd literally rather just, again, if you have enough in savings, if you have enough set aside, that I'd literally just rather do nothing than go work for $7 or $8 an hour. And to some extent, I don't blame them. been there where I didn't have anything better to do, so I worked an internship for free, and then I worked there for $30 a day, and then I just, again, I had nothing else to do. But if I was at a point in my life, even like anywhere better than where I was when I was 17, 18, and 19, I would not be doing that. I was doing that literally because I had no prospects, I had no future, I had no education, I had no business sense, I had no network, I had no nothing. So I figured I would do. But if I had any of those things at all, I wouldn't have been working at those shitty places. If you aggregate that data, if there was a way to aggregate that data, which is, okay, here's all the unemployed people, here's their education level and their work history, here's all the job openings, here's what they pay, I think that would be really interesting. It's just, again, you're never going to get data that's that specific, but it would definitely be helpful to be able to kind of tell a more accurate story as to how things actually are. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Again, have you quit your job recently? If so, why? What are you looking to do into the future? If you are looking to do anything into the future, are you looking to get another job, or are you looking to just retire? What's going through your head? I'm kind of curious. Again, I have been an employer at this point longer than I have been an employee. I started hiring people almost 10 years ago. I worked at places like Modell Sporting Goods, Avatar Studios, a much crappier recording studio, someplace moving furniture in the mall, some moving company, a delivery company. But that was all like 2005 through 2009-ish. For the most part, I've been a freelancer, run my own business for a long time, so I don't really have the employee's perspective the way that I used to, because I haven't been an employee for a really long time. But I kind of like to just keep in touch with people who are, keep in touch with that perspective, because it never hurts. I think that more people that own businesses or more people that are bosses should kind of try to understand the employee perspective, even if they don't always agree with certain things their employees think or that they say or that they do. It's important to kind of understand where people are coming from. So if you could let me know in the comments down below, I'd highly appreciate it. Also, you may notice that Clinton is still sleeping here. He is supposed to, meow and roar and look at the camera. Eli always goes roar, and I was kind of hoping I could at least have my Clinton go roar. Yeah, but yeah, he's literally just doing nothing, just no work. Just kind of being a bum, kind of being a Clinton. But he's so cute, isn't he? See this? This little arm is actually going. There we go. Okay, there was some really, really loud thunder and a strike of lightning, and that woke Mr. Clinton up immediately. That was interesting timing. So right as I was talking about Mr. Clinton being a lazy bum, he got woken up by lightning. Look at that. That is funny. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video.